Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today, we'll be talking about the future of internal developer portals and the role of AI in it. I'm joined by one of my favorite people in the developer experience world, Helen. Um, I've let her introduce herself, but Helen is the head of engineering for Backstage at Spotify, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing from her on why does developer experience matter, what is a developer portal, what is this thing called Backstage, everyone wants it, and then yeah, we'll chat about those things. So Helen, please introduce yourself, and then so looking forward to the chat.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me, Himanshu. Really pleased and excited to be here with you all today. My name is Helen Griel. I'm a proud Ukrainian, mother of two, based in Sweden, and as Himanshu said, leading engineering for Backstage at Spotify. So you'll find me more often around the subjects like developer productivity, open source communities, growing open source businesses, because all of those things are close to my heart. And I hope today we're going to have a good chat about developer experience and platform engineering and what the future of those two looks like. Thank you, Himanshu.
Awesome. And yeah, I'm Himanshu. I'm the product manager for our internal developer portal product at Harness. And I previously used to work in Helen's team. And then that's what you'll see a lot in this chat. So Helen, you have managed a lot of engineers, and you have seen engineering organizations at Spotify and at previous companies. Um, what does good look like in your perspective? What do you think engineering organizations should strive for, and what do you think the current problems are in some of the companies that you have observed?
Totally. Yeah, as you all might have witnessed, we go way back with Himanshu. So I hope there will be no kind of specific humor in this conversation. But yeah, in terms of like the happy state of developer productivity, there is a lot of talk about how to measure that, what does it look like, and my way of thinking about that and describing this is more like an end state. Like, what is the, just like you said, Himanshu, what is the end state, the happy state of developer productivity and the state that I'm striving for with my teams specifically. And to me, it boils down to, or is characterized by several key elements or key areas that I'm looking after. So, one is effective collaboration, obviously, where like it's just seamless, it's organic. Developers are seamlessly collaborating with other teams, sharing ideas, providing feedback, collectively solving problems, most importantly. And yeah, this environment is just fostered by sense of like camaraderie. The other one is probably flow state, the one to call out, where developers are like fully engaged, immersed in their work, and experiencing a state of flow, which to me is like a state of perhaps deep focus, motivation, and once again, immersion in what they're doing. With distractions minimized. So the time is just passing by when you're in that state. And that allows you to tackle challenges with ease. Tools and processes. I mean, probably not the favorite part, but also important. Like with developers having access to robust, well maintained tools and streamlined processes that enable them to work efficiently. That's just table stakes, I guess, but like a lot of organizations lack that as well, and they don't even realize that they lack that. So yeah, sometimes what we need to do is just like to surface some of those problems. It's not only about tools and about like ways of working. There's a lot to be said about like clear goals and priorities, and like when basically your priorities shift way too often, like you're maybe losing the sense of purpose and accomplishment too. So when we talk about developer experience and the end goal here and the happy state here. I also really like to call out that it's not only about the tools and the processes. Like environment plays a really key role here, and like individual empowerment of developers. The fact that they like are behind your goals and priorities, they feel like they have clear understanding of project goals, they have a say in this too, is also really key of like a healthy environment. Um, yeah. Work-life balance, I mean, at the end of the day, like all of this, like if we are successful in all of those dimensions, we've achieved flow state, collaboration, tools and processes. Hopefully you can have reasonable working hours and flexible schedules and opportunities to really rest and relax. So yeah, to me, I guess that's largely like those things. And yeah, on all of those dimensions, like as I meet with a bunch of organizations looking into improving their developer experience or just trying to understand that space a bit more, like what's in it for me, we end up talking to like large extent about those like four or five, six areas depending on how you break them down. And oftentimes I find organizations just not being able to assess themselves on a lot of those dimensions. They're like, where do we even start? Like, how are we doing? Can you tell us how we're doing on those dimensions? So yeah, this is probably the biggest thing to me. I
Sounds
don't
like
know,
a
Himanshu, if that
dream.
answered. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a dream place to work, to be honest. I also consider myself an engineer. I often use VS Code to kind of explain things. And I am a true believer that writing code is magic, and if you have an idea, you can really solve it within an hour if you want to. But if I feel I'm slowed down by things around me, and if there are not enough tools, if I cannot collaborate with people, if I cannot achieve that flow state, I get frustrated. So I think that perfectly answers me. So that's from a developer perspective, Helen. Why should let's say a CFO care about it? Why should someone managing a business in this economy care about having developers productive?
For sure. That's a question that I get on a daily basis, and that's a fair question to be asking. And uh, this is like one of my first things that I also suggest to developer champions, because every now and then, or like very often, I see certain initiatives in developer experience space driven by champions because they really feel the pain acutely, they want to change it, but oftentimes it's a struggle of like, how do I even articulate like what's the value of this thing to my senior leadership, to my upper management. So we practice that pitch a lot, and that's a really important pitch to nail for your organization, because developer experience is really different organization to organization. But yeah, going back to your original question of like, why in this environment we should care about making developers happy, because it's a competitive edge. It simply saves you money, and I can like give a couple of specific examples of like dimensions that like investment in developer experience can help you improve a lot in this in the current economy. I guess there is a lot of emphasis on like go to market times. Can we ship faster than our competitors? And developer experience is oftentimes an answer to that. Can we do more with less? Once again, people are trying to kind of look at this cost center and be like, can we ship more with what we have? And developer experience, once again, is an answer to that. And yeah, not to mention like higher quality software, reduced churn in your customer base. Like you probably, if you're shipping products, you want happier customers, you want higher quality software. So it has, like someone might say, not direct implications, but pretty, yeah, you can probably see like proxy implications of improving developer experience. So that's usually, to summarize, I guess it's like improved go-to-market times, increased visibility into like how your organization is doing, and as a result, increased resilience. You can quickly pivot from one direction to another without really sacrificing your productivity, higher quality software, and of course, like happier workforce as a
Yeah,
result of that.
taming the chaos. I still go to, I still search for backstage steal this deck. If you search for it, you'll get a deck of like 70 slides, which will help you kind of pitch backstage and developer portals to your organization. Speaking about backstage, what is backstage, Helen? We're talking about internal developer portals. It's been around for a few years now, but if you were to describe in, let's say, it's a very hard job, but in two sentences, what is the developer portal for you? What is backstage?
Oh my God. Um, yeah, I'll try to be brief here. Um, so, developer portals, in my view, which is highly subjective, I admit, I tend to view them as simply like a window into highly efficient platform organization, almost like a prerequisite. I know that there's a lot of talk about like comparing developer portals. So what is a developer portal? But to me, it's like one of the key enablers of a larger transformation that like a lot of organizations are going through. Um, like, to be more specific about like what developer portal product category is, to me it's like a central operational hub that basically attracts all of your R&D folks, developers, product managers, you name it, uh, and basically serves as a central hub where like developers can come together and gravitate towards to run their daily workflows, access documentation, APIs, tools, resources. And yeah, basically the end goal is to streamline all of that and centralize all of that, which Backstage, of course, falls into that category. And yeah, for those who didn't know what Backstage is, it's basically um, an internal tool born out of necessity at Spotify roughly 8.5 years ago, I want to say, nine maybe now. Um, and we found that as we grew, like our infrastructure was becoming more fragmented, our engineers less productive, hence Backstage. We were not trying to invent developer portal per se. We were trying to find a solution for a problem, and Backstage was a solution to a problem. And then when we figured that it might be useful for like a larger community, we donated it 4 years ago to CNCF. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, please come out of a rock. It's been 4 years. It's one of the hottest CNCF projects out there. The next Kubernetes, I hear this like every month, depending on the adoption, depending on the contributions that it's getting from the community, and just the overall activity around developer portals. And I really liked how you mentioned that it's part of a transformation. I think so too. I think the key transformations in the past decade or so has been developers doing their thing and then handling code to, let's say, an SRE to kind of ship it to the world. And then DevOps came along, and then everything was on developers to do, from writing code to actually shipping it to production, and messaging the customer, the user, that hey, this is done. It's all on them now. That was the transformation which Kubernetes and DevOps did. The next era is essentially what we call platform engineering. Is all right. So developers do this work. What kind of platform do they have internally to do this? And then thinking about that platform, let's say, and then of course it consists of developer portals, but it also has your entire CI, CD. It has your DevSecOps. How do you ensure you're not shipping the wrong things? It has all of it, all of the things that a developer has to think about. So in my opinion, it is definitely a transformation. We have only started. A lot of companies are still figuring out what does the best look like for them. So it's been 9 years. What's the So Spotify has been investing in developer portals and Backstage for very, very long. Clearly, it saves a lot of money. Clearly, it makes developers very productive. Can you talk more about it? Can you talk more about how is Spotify investing on Backstage today, and in investing in developer experience overall, being one of the very prominent companies out there in the industry?
Of course. Yeah, that's something that we as Spotify are like very proud of and very invested in for many years. I guess I want to say before it became mainstream, before developer experience became mainstream. But yeah, in terms of like Spotify continued investment in Backstage. There are many dimensions of that, and obviously, you touched on the fact that it's like one of the most vibrant open source projects and communities right now in CNCF landscape. And Spotify continues to be one of the key contributors to this framework and to this like whole product idea, I want to say. And this year we've had some pretty impactful new releases and changes to the core framework. So there is a new front end system that allows for greater flexibility of plugins, for declarative integration of plugins going forward, which makes install of a new plugin a much easier, much more intuitive thing to do, which like in turn should really streamline the process of like getting up and running with the developer portal. We made some pretty big changes to the backend system as well, and the ways that we do authentication of the Backstage instance. But yeah, not gonna go into deep details there. But the framework has made like significant progress when it comes to maturity, ease of use, and yeah, definitely the community of adopters and contributors and users has grown significantly. So yeah, with that, just a quick shameless plug. Backstage Con is now a thing. We do it as a collocated event 2 times a year. The next one will be in Paris this March. But yeah, everyone passionate about platform engineering, developer experience, this is your event. We want to see you there, as well as like around our community. There's a bunch of special groups of interest where contributors can learn from one another and share their experience. So definitely, uh, yeah, get involved with that. But besides of like Backstage is not the only place where we invest as Spotify in terms of developer experience. We have interest in a lot of different areas. So one remains to be around large refactorings. This is something that we're really keen on improving internally. There are like the small stuff, the small components, they add up pretty quickly, as we all know, and maintaining thousands of components, even if you have to do just minor updates, it just quickly adds up and becomes too big of a thing. So we're like figuring out how to tackle complex migrations and the small ones. So that sort of burden and like mundane work is automated out of developer hands. So yeah, there is something called Fleet Shift that we all use at Spotify that sort of automates away the need of like upgrading from Python 2 to Python 3, or like expanding the cloud regions we're in. All of that stuff is now taken care of. So yeah, this is something we're also thinking about potentially externalizing and making available to public. But yeah, this is largely kind of the areas we're focusing on right now when it comes to developer productivity, though of course the introduction of AI makes things a bit more interesting, and this is something we're also exploring at this current stage.
So, Helen, we're talking about developer portals here. Backstage is almost 4 years now in the open source world. Can you describe what developer portals are and why should people care about it? What is this whole revolution?
For sure. The era of developer portals, which seems to have just started a couple of years ago, and everyone is asking, like, what's the buzz? Why should I care? And my definition of a developer portal is essentially it's a single pane of glass for all of your infrastructure and tools. It's a ultimate cure to like chaos in your engineering organization. Some people call it control plane. Some people call it basically UI for my platform, which I think is maybe like an oversimplified definition of that. But it definitely has ties to effective and efficient platform organization. So I think the better term maybe to use here would be to say that developer portals is a means to get to a highly efficient platform organization and almost a prerequisite for having one. But I guess in reality, like what this means for your day to day and like how developer perceives something like a developer portal is a centralized operational hub that your developers will gravitate towards to run their daily workflows, access documentation, APIs, SDKs, everything and anything they might need for their development process and collaboration.
And clearly, Spotify is one of those kind of very highly efficient organizations. Um, what does the history look like? If we go back to, let's say, 2015, what happened in the last, let's say, 9 years? How did it come alive? How has it shaped into what this new industry term that exists today?
Totally. I think about that a lot and go down memory lane a lot because those memories are dear to me. Um, like many great products, Backstage was born out of necessity, out of the need to kind of solve uh, the problem of having too many Excel spreadsheets. But not only that, it was basically the problem of hyperscaling. We grew, our infrastructure was becoming more fragmented, our engineers were feeling less productive. And instead of spending time where they should be spending time on like building and testing, teams were spending more time just looking for the right information to get going on something. Like, where is this API that I'm supposed to be using? Like, what version of the framework is everyone on? The questions that we typically don't want them to spend time with. And that was when the idea of something like a developer portal was born, and it all started with like a service catalog centralizing ownership over components, so you could easily go to that central web page and figure out like who owns what. And then through inner sourcing, we sort of managed to kind of to make it a daily hub for like all of our operations. And I guess the key to enabling that was like a decentralized, federated ownership. So there isn't one team at Spotify that owns and runs Backstage. It's rather like a R&D driven effort where more than 80% of all of contributions that come to Backstage come from teams outside of the core Backstage team. So that was like a key enabler of inner sourcing for us. That was a key enabler of having a central point of operations basically for all of R&D. But that started as a simple web page with software catalog 9 years ago. That was called System Z, if I didn't mention that.
Yeah, and clearly everyone needed that web page. So thanks for open sourcing Backstage in 2020, um, and Spotify continues to invest in the open source project. You've got new projects spinning up. Backstage becomes easier to use, much more complex, and complex is a good word in the sense that it can solve different sets of problems for different companies. What does the future look like for Spotify's investment in Backstage? Are you working on more developer experience products? Can you please talk a little bit about that?
Totally. We have big aspirations in the space, and developer experience continues to be a focus for us, both when it comes to our internal endeavors and external. So externally, a lot of things happening around Backstage core framework. So we invest a lot as Spotify. We continue to invest a lot in Backstage open source project by expanding its core capabilities, contributing new features. And this year, you might have seen improvements, like rather large improvements to the front end system and the back end system that sort of simplifies creation and allows for greater flexibility of plugins if you're running Backstage instance with a great variety of plugins. Now, all of this also like has a greater value if you think about how Backstage project connects to the marketplace of plugins that Spotify is looking to expand this year. So imagine immersing yourself in the ecosystem where you have like all the tools available in developer experience space that you can just simply install in like and run in a plug and play manner. This is what Marketplace will provide for you this year. This is the experience that we're building and expanding on, and we're really, really keen on making all of this infrastructure and ecosystem work smoothly for everyone who's running Backstage instance. When it comes to stuff that we're working on internally as Spotify, because developer experience is ultimately larger than Backstage for us. We're really keen on automation and standardization as like the two big areas where we're investing. And when it comes to automation, like we're solving problems of like maintaining speed at scale, basically.
So, talking about imagination, I will pivot into something called AI, and how it's already impacting developers' life. How companies are saying it's almost important to have AI improve the software development lifecycle because of clear business improvements. Can you give an example of how, like, if Spotify has one of these advanced tools internally, which helps developers and developer organizations kind of achieve massive goals without too much time being spent?
Totally. I have a couple of things like that that might be worth mentioning in this context. And like, I guess the scale of the impact of such tools makes a big difference when we talk about it. So in Spotify's case, where we maintain tens of thousands of components across number of disciplines, even like performing a small update on all of this fleet is no joke, especially if you need to do a couple of those every year. And I'm sure that like every company recognizes those changes of like needing to upgrade from Java 17 to Java 18 or something like that. And what we've learned while like struggling with those challenges and finding the solution, that a healthier, more secure code base as a baseline for automation can like really go a long way. And we have something called Fleet Shift at Spotify that is basically a tool or framework that allows us to perform those operations over a course of like minutes and hours, and not over the course of like weeks and months as we used to have it
No.
before. But the biggest prerequisite for like enabling those changes at scale and massive automated refactorings at scale is achieving certain level of standardization in your infrastructure first, so you can have the confidence to be able to run a shift, as we call it, or like an upgrade on such a scale.
I love it. Especially when developers are bothered. I am bothered to do something for my organization standard. I hate it. Just do it for me, right? And one of the examples, one of our customers have achieved with. So, just for context, Harness invests in AI a lot, especially in context of impacting developers' lifecycle from writing code to building code to deploying code. One of the stages is ensuring secure code. So one of our products, security testing, if it gives you an alert, it will actually raise a pull request for you that you can quickly merge and then just get rid of all those alerts. Just wonderful in the life of developer. Managing code base becomes really, really simple. So I'm really bullish on this is going to change a lot of lives in a very positive sense, just the way DevOps did for, let's say, Asari personas. There will be more developers. There'll be much more productive developers, and hopefully much more happier developers. So with that, I would like to thank you, Helen, for sharing the time with us and talking about developer experience. It's always a pleasure. Um, any last tips, any last advices for any, let's say, someone like you who is leading an engineering organization in the company? What would you like to tell them in this context?
Thanks for having me, Himanshu. Always a pleasure to have conversations with you around developer experience, platform engineering, all of the above. I know we share a lot of values in terms of what good looks like. And if I had words of wisdom for like a technology leader or founder of a company, you should know developer experience in your organization. And now is the time to start understanding it more. I'm going to leave it at that.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. You can reach out to Helen on LinkedIn, on GitHub, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. Always happy to talk about developer experience. Have a great day, all. Bye.